How's it, everyone? My name is Duray. I am the South African SEO, co-founder at Viaduct Generation, and the new host at The Wise Build Bridges. The Wise Build Bridges is a podcast dedicated to highlighting the stories of marketeers and founders who are able to create really great stories in quite tight niches and those that are trying to really stand out. This is a practical podcast, so you can take notes, fellow marketers, as a way to learn a little bit more about marketing and some of the people within it. Today, I am blessed to have Carly with us. Carly, hello. Thanks so much for being here.
Hello. Lovely to see you. And thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much, Carly. I really appreciate it. So let's get right into it, Carly. Tell people who you are and what are you doing?
Okay. I'm Carly. This sounds like a dating profile. My husband wouldn't be very pleased about that one. My name is Carly, and I am currently the marketing manager for EcoSafe Group. I've been in the marketing industry for about 16 years now. So yeah, that's me.
Amazing. And tell us a little bit more about EcoSafe Group. What is it that you guys do really, really well? And what kind of a space do you operate in?
Okay, so EcoSafe Group is fundamentally a building contracting company. We have two kind of sides to the business in that we support housing associations, public kind of sector charities, councils, governments, that kind of thing, with different building and construction services such as plumbing, heating, fire safety, damp and mold compliance, electrical, basically everything you need to be able to support residents in housing associations, for example. And then we have our B2C arm, which we are kind of in the process of launching officially. That is for our private and domestic market. So that's the kind of you and I's, people who may own their own property or maybe in rental, who need, I don't know, a new kitchen, an extension, loft conversion. So that's more our B2C market, really. We've been going for about 16 years. And in kind of the last 2 to 3 years, we've just kind of grown massively, winning more work. We're much more visible in terms of our digital footprint, and yeah, we're a really lovely family-run company, but that is, quite big now. But that said, we have a lot of married people within the business, lots of brothers, sisters, that kind of thing. So we do try and employ, around that family ethos, which is great, which is lovely, from going from like a big corporation to this kind of family-run business where you get to spread your wings a little bit more, which is nice.
And you mentioned there that you were kind of winning more business and you were more visible. What are some of the key things that you've implemented since joining EcoSafe Group that have made a surprisingly bigger impact than you thought they might make?
Yeah, so when I first joined EcoSafe Group, we didn't necessarily have much of a marketing presence. There was no marketing person in place as per se. We had a freelancer who would support as and when, but really only small scale. So when I joined the business, it was quite difficult to join the team, and that was a shit answer.
Okay. Shall I ask it in a different way?
Yeah, hang on.
Cool. No worries, take your time. It's
all
all
my
good.
EcoSafe branded mug there, see?
Yeah, exactly. You should use it. Okay, I'm going to ask it in a different way. Okay, so EcoSafe have been around for 16 years. You mentioned that you're kind of winning more business than ever before. Is there something specific that you think has made a really tailored difference? I know that you've been in there a while, and like SEO and like marketing, incremental steps in the right direction tally up and over time kind of compound. But is there maybe one or two things that you've tried recently or you were surprised at the impact that they made?
So when it comes to implementing kind of new strategies or things that may have been a little bit surprising when I joined EcoSafe, is probably, well, it's not really a surprise to me because I always do it anywhere and everywhere I go, right, is bringing the people into our marketing. So when I started with the EcoSafe, we didn't really have any marketing. There was no fundamentals put in place. We had a website that wasn't performing very well. It wasn't generating any leads. There was no customer process. It was all just very disjointed and disconnected. So when I joined, coming up 2 years ago now, I always make the point of going in and learning as much as possible about every department, right from the directors through to the customer admin team, through to the people that are on the tools, because I believe that the success of any business is the people within it. Slogan in life is people by people, not things. And if you kind of position yourself by putting those people at the forefront of your marketing, you're more than likely guaranteed to get success. I'm not just talking from like a social space, but even from an SEO perspective, right? There's a lot more, I've found that, content that has a human element to it, a picture of people within our team, it does much better than something that is more generic content. And that's because people buy on emotion, right? They look for the human in it. They want to know what our people have done, what our people are doing. And I think I think it was more of a surprise for everybody else, right? They've been doing this work for a long, long time. We've got lots of people within the business who are incredible at what they do, and they don't shout about it. And effectively, my job is to shout about those things and to deliver that kind of message to our audience, to highlight the incredible people within our business, but also what we do in a way that's not selling to people, right? They want to hear how Mrs. Miggins has had her damper mold now sorted, and what impact that's had on her. So when we come to do tenders and everything, the partners that we're looking to connect with can really see the difference that we've made. It's not just some KPIs on an Excel. I hate Excel, but it's not KPIs on an Excel. It's actually the human element of that. And I think for people within the business, they were quite surprised by that simple thing, right? It's not rocket science to be like, let's just shout about what we are doing and the people that are within the business. But I think it comes sometimes marketing used as a buzzword, right? We've got so many different roles within marketing. Everybody is an expert. Anybody is an expert nowadays, right? So it kind of puts people off. And when you come into kind of a niche construction, which can be seen as quite a stale and boring space in the B2B, sector, right? If you're going down the B2B route, it is seen as, it's so much harder to market. And I get told that all the time, especially from kind of younger understudies. They're like, it's really difficult to market in B2B. And I'm like, it's really not. Because if you connect the human element, it becomes more fun. You're no longer writing about how much does my roof replacement cost. It's okay. Yeah, we need those fundamentals in there. People want to know, right, how much that roof is going to cost. Sure. But they also want to know the stories from the people whose roofs we've fixed and how we've done it and what good quality work we've done, but also how that's made an impact to them. It's kind of no different to looking on Amazon and wanting to buy something and scrolling down straight to the customer testimonials and the pictures to see what you're actually going to get.
That's a good point.
So I think for me, that's kind of the surprising but non-surprising element of what I've kind of brought to the table. That maybe a bit different in construction. I kind of did a lot of research before joining the company, as I do with any company, right? And it was just a lot of tedious, here's a case study, and rinse and repeat with no human element in there, no nice video. So there's my answer for that one. Sorry.
Nice. No. That's great. That's really, really useful. So you mentioned in there about you spent in a number of different careers within marketing already. Can you tell me a little bit about, like, if you were to start your career all over again and you were to go talk to younger, less wise Carly, what advice would you give to yourself at that point?
So the kind of advice I would give to the younger version of me 15, 16 years ago, which seems incredibly long now, I wouldn't change anything. I really wouldn't change anything about my career or the way that I've done things, because I'm not necessarily a believer of wish I did that better. It's always I could do that better. It's never, reflective in that way. I think I would say have way more confidence, because now that I have gotten that confidence, it does make life easier. Don't be afraid to kind of ask people questions. I've always been somebody who asks a lot of questions and probably annoys a lot of people, and it's not for any other reason than I'm inquisitive. I like to understand how people work and that kind of thing. So the other thing that I'm a strong believer on is, educating myself. So I would want me to, like I said, I wouldn't necessarily change anything, but learn as much as I could from anybody and everybody, rather. Yeah, I'm sorry, lost
No,
my
you're
way.
good. No. I think you've nailed it there, right? So like increased confidence, like really like stay forth and believe in what you believe in. Stay curious in terms of like consistently staying inquisitive, staying curious, trying to find ways to do things better, and a consistent education. I think that's so important. Whereas in marketing, the whole very nature of what we do is to try and to kind of essentially like get in front of consumers, right? On a day-to-day basis. We need to understand consumer behavior better than anyone else. Well, maybe not as good as psychologists, but there or thereabouts. And marketeers are hired to understand the buying behavior of our consumer. So in order to kind of stay abreast with our consumer, we have to be staying, especially if you're selling things that are purchased on TikTok or something like that, you got to be staying way ahead of the consumer, right? So I think a constant education is incredibly important, and I think your point on that is really valid.
Yeah, I see a lot on LinkedIn of, again, some understudies that I've worked with and nurtured, posing the question or bluntly putting, there is no point in doing a degree in marketing. You can get a career in marketing straight off the bat. Just post to TikTok and that makes you an expert. In my opinion, it really does not. And I believe that you don't have to go to uni to work in marketing. You could pick up the tools with most time. It's a laptop with a good internet connection and a bit of creative spirit. However, if you do not learn the fundamentals of marketing, and like you say, understanding how people tick, your price, your positioning, any promotions, those fundamentals and how to measure it, then you're just putting out content for the sake of putting out content. And it's like saying, and I get this, and I have gotten this a lot, especially in my kind of freelance work, where I have met lots of smaller business owners who have had their nephew's friend do their marketing, sort out their Facebook because they're cheap, let's be fair, or they're good at it. They know how to post. But there's a difference between knowing how to post and knowing how to post that works in line with a strategy, a plan of action. And yes, plans don't always go the way you expect them to. You can spend hours and hours and hours working on this campaign, thinking that it is going to friggin' succeed the moment you press publish, and you're awaiting on Google Analytics, looking at all the traffic coming to the website, and you're like, yes, conversion, and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And that's just purely, it just doesn't always work the way you expect it to work. And I think there is some learning to be had with that, right? Like I said, I'm not expecting people to go out and get themselves into debt like I did with the degree. But that was the right thing for me. And I wouldn't necessarily tell somebody you shouldn't go for a degree, or you should do this and you should do that. We all have our own past. We all have our own journey to go on.
Yeah.
But if you do not understand the fundamentals of marketing and kind of how to connect those dots, then you should learn how to do that. If you've got that creative kind of spark of, a bit like myself, when I first got into marketing, it was purely, I didn't know that it was marketing. I didn't know that marketing was a thing. We didn't go to the kind of careers advisor, where you do a quiz and they're like, this is what you should be.
I remember.
And mine was art teacher. And I was like, great, I've always wanted to be an art teacher. Got an A star at GCSE art, thinking, amazing, like I'm going to be the best art teacher in the world, to then going to college and literally getting an E in my first year and being like, what the hell?
No.
And, I've completely lost my train of thought.
No, you're absolutely fine. I think it's not bad, not a bad finish. Let's jump into a different question. So you said something really interesting there, Carly. You mentioned that content for the sake of content. And I think with the introduction of AI, people are putting out more content than ever before because that's what we've been told to do. You have a really good understanding of SEO in our brief conversation before this, but how do you think businesses, they can't afford massive SEO retainers every month, what can they be doing to combat the influx of content? And how do you think consumer behavior might change based on this influx of, let's be honest, bang average content? Is there anything we can do to kind of differentiate ourselves? Or is it just the consistency of high quality interactions on a consistent basis across a number of mediums?
I think the answer for that is kind of twofold, right? Where you've said, okay, a company might not have the funds to be able to churn out lots of SEO content. I think it's for them, it would be the quality pieces, to really focus on the actual keywords that you want to target, your target audience, and what is that desired action you want from that piece of content. There is literally no point paying somebody to stick a load of stuff into ChatGPT and whack out a load of content that means nothing to nobody. And it's fine to use ChatGPT or other AI robots that you prefer. But for me, you can't just publish that. You need to add your tone of voice to it and everything else. So those people that don't necessarily have the funds, and I've been in that position, right, where, you're the only marketeer within the company. Our team at EcoSafe Group is very small. We have to be very tailored and specific towards what we are targeting. And it is incredibly hard for experts at the moment to kind of combat, and I say combat not in a negative way to a degree. It's hard to combat the kind of changes that are coming with AI, whereby you've got, the AI automated response in a Google search, which is stopping people from clicking on your website. Right. If you are not being found in that AI content, then you can guarantee you're not going to get they're not going to scroll any further than that because they've got their answer then and there. Mm-hmm. SEO kind of experts have got a really difficult job in tailoring their content, A, towards that, but B, towards the human. And that's where I'm saying, you really have to bring that personal element into it to make your content quality and keep the user and the customer on your content for longer.
Yeah.
And then I believe strongly, another area of kind of marketing that I think people should be more aware about is the kind of zero-click approach, especially on socials, right? You've got some really incredible content being put out, lots of educational pieces that people would normally save for their website. They're actually putting it into social content as part of their strategy. And it's typically carousels where they can get all the information they need from that one carousel. They don't have to click on anything. They just literally swipe. And again, it's tricky for an SEO expert to be able to work with that. But I think it has its place in that it is giving your user what they want when they want it in a nice creative look and feel. And then, you can complement that with pieces that do direct people to your website.
Yeah.
So I think quality over quantity is my response to your question there. And I really feel that, video also will have its place. People are really, really pushing for video content creators, which is good, having a filmmaking background for me, because I can decipher, the good stuff and the bad stuff. But equally, it's really fascinating how people have changed the way that they search, the way that they do things, the way that they buy in this last 15 years. I don't think there's many other industries that you can work within where the growth is so quick. This time, however many years ago, I was setting up a little Facebook page for little tea rooms in the middle ass end of nowhere, not realizing this was marketing. And now, people are being paid to do this, right? That's the one thing I always think about my job is I love working in marketing. It's the things that I used to do of designing little leaflets or little promotion cards to do a little door drop. I didn't know it was a door drop. I'd just be trying to get people into the garden centre to make it busy because it was boring when it wasn't busy. There was nobody to talk to. So that's kind of where I started, and not knowing that is actually marketing. And now you can be paid to do this stuff, right? You can be paid
Absolutely.
to create a leaflet, which is amazing. Like, however many years ago, that was such a niche job that nobody you wouldn't pay somebody £75 an hour to write some copy on a website, for example. And now it really is a great creative space. And I think, especially for younger people, there's so much scope to get into. Just is you kind of need to, as a business owner, you do really need to find the quality kind of experts in the field to be able to give you that quality content that your business will need.
Absolutely. I think there's been, because of the low barrier to entry that is in marketing, particularly SEO is one where my mom, shout out my mom, she's great, but she's not an SEO. But she could decide to be an SEO, and therefore she is. Marketing, besides maybe a CIM certificate or getting a degree in marketing, holds some authority. But I don't know about you, I don't really place that much value, particularly me when I'm hiring internally, on educational, because marketing is changing so often. So let's get back to kind of some practical advice on what advice you would give to someone who is trying to kind of build visibility in a crowded space.
Okay, so to build that visibility that a business might need in a more niche space such as construction, I think the most important thing is, and I will say this for any industry actually, is to show up. If you're going to use socials, be sociable, right? Engage with people, comment on things. Don't just post something and run and expect that content to perform, because it won't if there's no engagement on that. I mean, you're fighting with robots to get your content seen in the first place. But we've always said or I've always said to business owners, the platform is there and it's intended to be used for what it is used for. Therefore, you kind of have to follow the rules of the platform. But I think for a niche market in particular, you really have to be consistently showing up.
Yeah.
Showing your worth and highlighting why your business can either do a service or has a better product than somebody else. I don't believe in copying competitors. I think competition is healthy. I think it is good to see, what your competition is doing, but I don't think that needs to be the only thing that a company focuses on. And I've worked for some companies and that's all they'll do. Oh, well, such and such is doing that, so we should be doing that. No, we should be highlighting, again, those people within the business that make your business different. They don't have a you or an I in their company. Therefore, our perspective is different. And that's, again, another important point is perspective. Like I said, we've got some really, really knowledgeable people within our business who hold some incredible accreditations, myself included, where you talk about the CIM. I am a CIM, MCIM qualified chartered marketing person.
Yeah.
And although it doesn't necessarily hold weight to if I was looking for somebody to support me an assistant role, I wouldn't necessarily always look for that, right? But within construction, it is about the accreditations, and it is about because for us, we have to jump through so many hoops to be accredited for things. Yeah. So it is highlighting those to potential customers or to our partners that, our team have worked incredibly hard to get these things. So it's kind of, you've always got to be showing your best foot first within the space. And that again comes back to this quality piece. I always speak to our marketing assistant about this, about how don't just post for the sake of it. We don't have to post every single day if we do not want to. We can make the rules, right? But the content that's going out should be, it should either be informative, it should highlight our team, it should, deliver a promotional offer to our customers that they are going to get some value from. It should always add value as opposed to just being there for the sake of it. I think for anyone looking to kind of break into the niche, really just get to grips with the foundations of the business, talk to people, because 9 times out of 10, they'll drop in a golden nugget during a conversation that they wouldn't have said if you emailed them. To literally go in their face and just talk to them. They're humans at the end of the day. And, you know, for younger people especially, it can be really daunting to go and speak to like a director or a CEO. But I always just think, well, you know, they're just people at the end of the day. You know, they're no different to you and I. Yeah, okay, we get some people who you wouldn't necessarily want to cross them on a bad day, but it's go and ask the questions. Just to put a little bit of confidence in yourself and ask those questions. Find out what your unique selling point is, and tailor your marketing plan around that. And I think as a foundation builder, that is really going to help anybody trying to kind of break it in the niche space.
Yeah. Okay. So a couple of things I got from that were like maintain that curiosity consistently to really unearth where the biggest challenges that your ideal client profile is currently facing. Show up with authenticity. Don't sit here and tick boxes and run to be like, have we posted on Instagram? Great post. Okay, see you later. But actually, like, if it's a social media, be social, right? Go chat to other developers and other housing associations and make sure that when you are posting, make sure it's quality over quantity and you're using it to either educate, inform, or promote your services. Ultimately, not doing anything for the sake of it, but really making sure there's purpose behind your action.
Yeah.
Have I got that about right?
Yeah, I mean, you are excellent at deciphering my waffle into short, sustainable snippets of information. So do you want a job?
Honestly, Carly, you're doing a great job here. And I think what a lot of people don't realize is that you said something earlier. You said, like, we're all just people. Throughout our journeys, we all pick up different things, right? And we pick up different people that contribute to who we are and different moments that contribute to who we are. There's a principle in like tribal South Africa, and a word used as called Ubuntu, which basically essentially means I am because we are, and it expresses my humanity through your humanity. And it kind of always reminds me of to always be kind, because you never know what anyone else is going through. And I think a lot of people might sit here and listen to your knowledge and be like, wow, this woman's amazing. She's got this kind of certificate. She's running this business. She does a bit of freelancing on the side. She's really doing things, but I don't think they're aware of some of the challenges that you're going through. No, would you like to take a moment just to tell people a little bit about Cauda equina syndrome and the Champions charity?
Yeah, so I have a disability. It's not something, well, it's relatively new for me in that it's only been in this kind of like year and a bit where everything kind of went a bit downhill. And Cauda equina syndrome is effectively where you get a spinal cord injury where your disc goes straight through your spinal cord. In some places, you know, there'll be variations of that, and it can happen to anybody. It's relatively rare. I don't want people to be like screaming, thinking, oh my God, my back is going to go at any moment, right? But most marketeers will, you know, I've never really thought about my back before. I've done things where I've been on shoots, and I remember one of the first ones I ever went on, and I had to hold the boom for like literally an hour while this guy was talking, but I had to hold it underneath the camera so no one would see it. And it was before the point of like raw content where people would see behind the scenes. And it was for it was for an award ceremony with this guy who was incredible. And he was a war veteran, and the reason why he was being nominated for this award was because of the amazing stuff he did. And I was like, oh God, like I can't lose where I am right now. And I remember coming out of that and being like, oh God, my back really hurts. But I must have been about 18 at the time, and I didn't think anything of it. And then over the years, your back just goes through so much abuse. Like, obviously, I can see you shifting now, being like, oh, need to remember to sit up straight.
Posture check.
Yeah, posture check. And this is it, right? Most marketeers will either be out on set doing socials, or they'll be sat building a website or doing SEO work, and you'll be at your computer and you'll forget to stand up because you know, are so busy in your work, or you're not sat properly, or you're hunched over. That's one of the things that I struggle with. That I get really, the more I get into it, the closer I get to the screen. And
Yeah.
I had a few bits and pieces of a few problems with my back over the years. Having 2 children and having, you know, pregnancy didn't exactly help with that. And I ended up just purely picking up my pajamas, because my husband will tell you I'm not a messy person, but my pajamas were on the floor, and I picked up my pajamas from the floor.
Happens to the best of us. Happens to the best of us.
Exactly. You know what it's like when you just like, no, I can't just take it off for the bed.
Yeah,
go to sleep. And I picked up my pajamas, and within that instant, I knew that something was going on. And thankfully, I knew the red flags of cauda equina because of the previous things I'd had. I had a previous back surgery before. Cauda equina syndrome is something that you have to have operated on within a certain amount of time. Unfortunately, there were situations with mine that delayed a little bit, so I am left with lasting damage. At the time, because it was an emergency, they did a disectomy, and unfortunately I ended up getting cauda equina syndrome again in kind of April last year, and then I've had to have a spinal fusion and a cage put in September, so I'm still relatively new in my recovery period.
Wow.
And when this happens, it affects anything waist down, so your bowel and bladder are impacted, which, to be honest, nobody tends to want to talk about, because it's like, going to the bathroom is such a big deal, but again, we're all people, we all have to do it, right? You know, your mobility is impacted. At one point I was having to use a wheelchair, and that was incredibly hard to kind of get your head around, going from being able to walk around to not being able to walk around. Like, I'd had use of crutches before, so it wasn't so bad when I was on that. And then, since having my fusion surgery, touch wood, things have improved in some ways, and other things will stay the same. I will always have to do things like self-catheterization and manual evacuation, and I will, probably won't get the feeling back in my legs. But the positive that I take from it is it could be worse. When it was at its worst moment and I could not feel anything, and the searing pain down both legs was so extreme, like I can't even describe it. And I've had 2 kids, and that was hard enough. That was painful. But this was on like another scale. And it's really important for people to be aware of their body and look after yourself, because when you work in an industry like marketing, you can get yourself burnt out very quickly, and you can get into the flow of just overworking. Sometimes it's frustrating because I don't know, if you're, for example, working on socials and you've been, searching things and doing stuff, and then you'll be in your home time, and then you'll be looking down your own personal socials, and all you're seeing is work adverts. Like, I don't always need solar panels for my roof. I don't always need a freaking fence, but that is what I always get targeted with, because I've been searching for, competitor research or that kind of stuff through work. But it's so important to switch off. And with Cauda Equina Champions, they are a charity that is purely focused towards people, but also their family members or friends of people that have had Cauda Equina syndrome. Again, like I said, it is rare. I don't want to scare people off, but they should know, the red flags of, if you've got sciatica or pain in both legs, your thighs are starting to get sore and hurting, not because you've gone for a run, but because you've just been sat there all day. Then, just have a bit of a think, is this something that's out of the ordinary? And just remember to look after your back, right? Because it is holding you up, literally.
Yeah, exactly.
If anybody is listening from, out there in the world that's had this, Cauda Equina Champions are there for people in the UK. Should they need that extra support, really?
That's amazing. It sounds like a really, really awesome charity that's doing good things. And I think just further demonstrates you are obviously a very talented marketeer. You've been instrumental in the success of EcoSafe and a number of businesses before this. You've imparted some great wisdom here in terms of ensuring that people demonstrate that confidence, they stay curious, and they really try and show up with authenticity. I think those are concepts that I think anyone in marketing can take value from. But to be doing all of that while going through what you are, I think it's really inspirational. So just from me to you, congratulations, and keep fighting a good fight, because you're doing a great job.
You are way too kind. Sorry, I'm one of those people that struggle to take compliments from people, but I really appreciate that. It's nice sometimes to be recognized in marketing, especially as marketing is like one of those industries where you don't always get complimented.
Yeah.
And if you are looking for an industry to work in where you get complimented every day, all day, every day, you only really hear from people when shit hits the fan. Sorry. And it goes wrong. that is nice to get those reminders sometimes and that kind of recognition, which is lovely. So thank you. I appreciate that.
My absolute pleasure. Carly, for people that might want to chat to you, either you've got some wisdom that they want to derive from you, or maybe they also have things that they are struggling with and they just want to connect with you, where should they find you?
LinkedIn, to be fair. I'm one of those people that I like to keep my Instagram and my Facebook, private to my family.
Yeah, I'm with you.
But LinkedIn is kind of where I kind of hang out. If you're looking for content that's curated in a way of, let's do 20 push-ups at 5 a.m. in the morning and I will tell you how to make £1 million in 2 hours, then I'm not like that. Pretty much what you see now and how I speak is pretty much how I do it on LinkedIn. I try to be as personable as I am online and offline, because it would be, I always find it weird when you go and speak to somebody and you're like, oh, you don't speak in acronyms. Like, I think it's a good place when people are just being themselves and just bringing to the table their expertise. But yeah, I'd love it if anybody reached out. It would be nice that someone actually listens. And I will say to my followers, obviously I am in a millennials dream hub right now, and I always get the comments whenever I'm in here and I take a photo. They're always, is that a Blockbuster wall? It's my husband's, but he just has good sound equipment, so that's why I'm in here today. Amazing. But we can talk about it if you would like.
Well, there we go. For everyone, that's Carly Gray, the marketing manager of EcoSafe Group. Carly, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it. Thank you again, and have a lovely rest of your day.
Pleasure. Thank you.